Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to talk through an analogy that Isaac and I have found very helpful over time for understanding legacy code and tech debt, which is construction in old houses. And it doesn't even need to be a particularly old house. But if you've ever had a house or done construction and you've experienced the joy of you get somebody out and they give you a quote because they look at what they see is going on and they give you an estimate, and then they go out and they actually open the walls and you discover all kinds of terrible things
hmm
that wasn't apparent from the outside, where lines aren't in the right spot and the previous person just put a little junction that's not up to code, or the wiring is not up to code, or any of the other million things that happen that once you open the walls you discover, I don't know, bug damage.
hmm
Lots and lots of stuff can happen, and it causes the timelines and the costs to explode. And so it makes a good analogy for legacy systems, because when somebody asks you to make a change on a legacy system, you can ask, if you don't know the legacy system, right, which is the case of a contractor coming in who did not work on your house previously,
hmm
they can't give you any kind of realistic estimate because they don't know how the thing was constructed.
Right. That's that's actually, yeah, that's a pretty good analogy too, because sometimes when you're working with product at a company and product comes in and they're like, what's the big deal? Or like, we're like, let's just change one thing, let's just add one column, or
Let's just add one more
let's,
field to the form.
yeah, it ends up being, oh, that's gonna, and then like you're saying here, if you're either a contractor of the company, you're not familiar with the
Mm-hmm.
company, or you're somebody at the company is familiar with the company but who hasn't worked in that space before,
Mm-hmm.
then you're asked to make this change. You might be like, oh, yeah, easy. I'm going to point that as a 3 pointer or whatever the points mean at
Mm-hmm.
your company. Some people say 3 points is a day, or then you can point it. But then as you dig in and you realize, oh, people have been duct taping everything under here so much that it actually is super complicated to do a thing that seemed very easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've run into that many, many times. Then you have to go back to the product person and be like, oh, well, actually, the thing we thought was going to take a day is going to take 2 weeks because we have to refactor and fix a bunch of things that over time got bad that we didn't know was an issue. And so, to your point, kind of with looking in the walls and finding things not up to code, if I dig through and find like a very bad security exploit that I'm like, oh, now
Mm-hmm.
that we know that's here, we have to fix this because we didn't know it was here before.
Right.
That
It's
adds time to
lucky.
it.
We feel very lucky
Right.
that now our code, our thing is just 6 weeks out because we found this horrible security exploit before some hacker did.
Right. But to the dismay of both the person owning the house who wants to get their house changed in some
Mm-hmm.
way, or the product person who is responsible for communicating the level of effort of changes and organizing the team and getting all these changes in, and realize that they're both realizing there's more money involved because there's more
Mm-hmm.
hours involved because there's more work involved, that was discovered work essentially. So I really like that analogy essentially because it happens a lot. Um, Go ahead.
Just I was remembering my parents had this ongoing saga. They needed to retile their bathroom.
hmm
They took the toilet off. They retiled the bathroom, and then they went to put the toilet back on. They got a new toilet as well, and they discovered that the hole for the toilet is in the wrong spot. It was over 6 inches, and so
Yikes.
then they needed to get this adapter thing, which the original toilet had, but it got thrown out because nobody knew that they needed to save this, or you couldn't reuse it
Ah,
anyway. But like,
yeah.
it's an adapter thing, and they didn't have it, and then they couldn't get it, and then it took like an extra couple weeks. Where like the Tyler, he had no idea that he would. He's like, yeah, I'll take the toilet off. Hey, you want me to
hmm
put a new toilet on? Sure, I can put a new toilet on, no problem. Oh, now we need like to move this. I can't move this hole in the floor 6 inches. Now we need like this adapter.
Right.
It's just like that's the kind of thing where it happens all the time.
I like these analogies too when we're talking about contracting because money is a lot more apparent when we think about things this way, especially when
Mm,
you tie in house costs, right? When you think like redoing a bathroom, you're money conscious. It's
right.
your house that could balloon and cost a lot of money. I don't think engineers in a lot of cases are as money conscious, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, because they just as they go through and they discover there's more work. That's If you're a contractor and you're doing hourly, that's good. You're earning more money. If you're an engineer and you're salaried, you're not really thinking along the lines of this is going to cost more money. It gets lost to you. You just earn the
It's
same amount of
true.
money each week, right? And so when people say this is gonna, we're gonna have to make these changes, and you're like, oh, we'll scrap this and do this the right way. That can be a conversation that really needs to happen. The reason I highlight this is one example I gave a long time ago is when I was talking to my friends about the kind of stuff I do.
Hmm.
I called it like plumbing, like tech plumbing, because
Yeah.
we go through and have to fix things this way. But if someone calls a plumber and they say, hey, I need to fix something with my sink, and that's my only issue, and you discover that there's something worse as you're doing it, you
Right.
can't make the decision, oh, I'm just going to do this way. Engineers will, without telling people
Yes, they will.
sometimes, right? But if there's a budget for the person whose sink you're fixing, they might not have that kind of money. So even if you want to do it the right way, money is the constraint here. You might have to do it a half-ass way, and that's a lot of times when you're working on these things, you have to have these monetary constraints. There's like you might have to get it out not the way you wanted to because there's not the money there. But you can't make the
Well,
decision until some old lady, actually, we're going to triple your budget because she can't pay you for that, right?
well, there's the other half, which I think gets into physical engineering as well. But so with the example of my parents' toilet, if somebody was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to move this hole,"
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, well, now you're going to jackhammer the foundation of this house all along this trench, and
Mm-hmm.
then jackhammer a new foundation to put the new trench in with the hole in the right spot, and then you're going to go back and fill it up, and you're going to have to tear through 2 or 3 rooms, and to do all this work, or every time somebody wants to change a toilet, they got to buy this adapter.
Right.
And engineers often don't think about like the realities of that. Where yeah, it sucks. You should really. It would be great if you could move the hole, but everyone, we're never going to move that hole. That hole is there.
Right. And that's why I think we have to kind of frame it sometimes for engineers. One, like if you discover that, first of all, like if you discover new work, tell people. Don't just make the decision.
Mm.
Um, but two, especially if you're a W-2 engineer, which I would say most people are if they're an engineer at a company, um, like be money conscious about the level of effort of change there. Because again, like if you say, hey,
And the return on investment.
right, like if it was your project to add new field or do whatever, blah, 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 you discover it's a lot harder than you thought it was. It will be really useful for the product people and any other people in management to understand, oh, we were going to add this as like a nice to have because a couple of customers wanted it. Turns out the level of effort is actually just as much as this feature beloved by other people that they really want us to build.
Mm-hmm.
Let's build that instead of fixing this other thing, right? So that information is super useful to convey back to the team rather than just going like, oh, well, technically to do this the right way, as an engineer who respects engineering, I should I should do this the most expensive way because it should be done this way because that's the way it was
Right.
taught to me. You know, that shouldn't be your decision to make. That advice can be taken, but like again, feed it back to people who care about how much they're willing to spend on you to do that.
Right. Yes. To use another analogy would be, you know, if you try to make something earthquake proof in a hurricane area, you're wasting money.
Yeah. And as long as you communicate that back, I mean, it's not like people aren't willing to do things the right way. Again, sometimes the money is just not there to do it the right way, and it's nothing about your skill
Mm-hmm.
or nothing about you. It's just like, okay, well, okay, well, now that we know that this is more complicated, is there another low hanging fruit that we can solve instead? Can we put that on the backlog and maybe address it at a later point? Just share the information there. But yeah, so I mean, even going back to the idea of tearing down a wall in the house and realizing,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there's so much more here that we have to fix before we would be able to do what we want to do. Even if they were able to tore down part of the wall and realize that, and you realized your
Exactly.
your $20,000 project that you thought was 20,000 actually be 80,000, you could lose a little bit of money and be like, patch the wall back up. We're not doing this. You have an ability to stop. you can continue, you can stop, but now you have the information rather than just diving into it. And that optionality is very important.
Right. And if you're even with a larger project where you're going to, say, destroy a whole kitchen, remove everything, and then put a new kitchen in, and you discover for reasons that you can't do the design. Like you've come up with a design with the homeowner and they love it. And then you discover, oh, the gas line actually isn't, there's no way to do this up to code because the gas line's on the wrong side of the room. And we'd have to, like, we can't get it over there
Mm-hmm.
because just of the way shape of things. So, okay, well, before you start trying to do that, talk to the homeowner because now it's time for a new idea
Yeah.
of maybe you don't have a gas oven or put the oven back where it was, and with all the
Yeah.
complications that produces.
As long as that communication can happen, because even then the homeowner might be disappointed, but then they could pivot and then maybe there's a different design that still solves their needs and still is up to code or whatever this particular case. That communication, as long as you have it, you can decide to go through with it, to back off and find other things more important. There's so many ways to solve problems, especially if you have all the information. So pausing when you have the information and sharing it, that's definitely a key highlight for this episode.
Right. And that you will never know. It's hard. The only way to know how hard something is to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can estimate all you want, but you're imagining what's inside those walls.
Right.
And you'll never know until you start. And so the longer you sit there and plan, the harder it becomes. They're not the harder it becomes, but you don't learn that much. You need to move forward.
Right. I think this is kind of the equivalent of some companies of doing a spike ticket where they're like, we don't know how to point this. It seems like it would be easy, but before we begin the work and say we're going to commit to making this change, let's create a spike ticket, which is an investigation ticket to go through and
Mm-hmm.
see how difficult would it be to make this change. So maybe in the contracting house analogy, it's finding a way to kind of see through the walls or, find dig through and understand where things are located in the house before you say, okay, we're going to start demoing stuff. And then you lose a little bit of money on the investigation in time on the investigation, sure, but you end up losing far less than you would have if you discover that the project was way more difficult than expected.
Right. And even contracting projects have that initial thing of, the person says, oh, well, this is what we want to do. I want to renovate this whole bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the contractor looks at the bathroom and then says, okay, this is what I think it takes. Like at least that, because I've heard of online companies where it's like, oh, you say I want a new bathroom and they give you a quote. And they don't even look. And it's like, well, that sounds very likely to go all sideways.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other
So,
thoughts on that one?
no, I just developers, this is a great analogy to have in your toolkit when people don't understand. Almost everyone has lived in a house or an apartment or whatever that has had construction and it's been a disaster. And so they will understand the analogy of, oh, even cars, I guess it's similar, where you get it up to a mechanic and they say, this is what we think it is. And then they get in there and it's totally not. Until you start getting in there, you're never going to really know. And
Gotcha. And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.